So I want to say a big welcome and hello to everyone joining us online and also on campus as well. So thank you for joining our seminar today. And we have a really exciting topic about the metaverse. So I'm sure a lot of you have heard this word thrown around. So we're going to dive a lot deeper today. So allow me to just make a few quick announcements right before we get started. First things first, our agenda of the day is we're going to jump into our seminar, which will be most of the portion of this event. And I think our speaker today, Giulio, has asked that you ask questions throughout as well. So if you have questions, please raise your hands, join the conversation. We're going to make this as interactive as possible. And then we will have a closing as well. For those of us on campus, we'll have a little bit of networking. For questions, if you are online, we ask that you raise your virtual hand. And then what will happen is we will unmute you. We will call on you and we will unmute you and you can speak up and we will be able to hear you right here on campus. If you are on campus, when you ask a question, you will need a mic. Otherwise, our online participants will not be able to hear you. So please wait until we deliver the mic to you and then go ahead and ask. So again, remember, online, raise those virtual hands. We'll get to you and unmute you. And on campus, raise your hand and we'll get a mic to you. So what we're going to do is I'm going to give a very brief introduction, but I'm sure that Mr. Giulio has an even better introduction of himself. But we're really excited to welcome you to our campus today. And we're excited what the topic ahead, a very big topic. So I hope everyone has lots of questions prepared. So there's a lot of things that you do, Giulio, a lot of things that are listed right here, and you can see online in the shared screens as well. So we're going to ask a question later of what can't you do? But I think the best way to go forward is to have the man himself introduce himself. And we're going to jump straight into the seminar. So Mr. Giulio Toscani, if I can ask you to come over here and just take things from here. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much and welcome everyone. I'm very, very happy to be here after 3 years of lockdown that couldn't see Japan anymore. And the better thing, since we are online and we are talking about technology and metaverse, to try to have not an immersive, but a slightly more immersive experience with just a video that I will show you now and will be here. 130 seconds just to show you who I am. This introduction that you can see that I am, yes, I'm an academic, but I like to travel and have different types of skills. The question is, why do I show a video where half of the video in a professional setting is about my personal life? I show myself sweating in underwear or in a swimming suit. Why the need of showing this at the beginning of a presentation? What could be the reason? Number one, okay, because I'm an Italian egocentric. But what is the second reason to show so many personal things in a presentation when we are just talking about the metaverse? What do you think? Here in the room or home? I'm going starting straight with the questions. What do you think? Here in the room, you have some advantages. You can just talk and tell me. Go ahead. Okay, I will help you. It's because I want you to see that I'm just one more vulnerable person. And this is very important because you can see that I'm an authentic person, and authenticity brings trust. Why do I need your trust? And sure, in theory, I'm the professor, so I should just be relaxed about it and don't need your trust. Yes, I do. Why? Because we are going to interact. We are going to build this session together. And that's why I'm not just going to pass you concept and the metaverse and talk by myself. I will ask lots of questions, especially because I teach digital strategy, but I'm not going to glorify technology. Actually, more the opposite. I will show you also some ethical concerns that, especially when we talk about the metaverse, is important. So at the end, the goal is that by the end of the session, you will hate me. I promise you, this is my promise to delivery, that you will hate me. It's not that you will love me. Why? Because I won't make you believe you've been thinking. I really make you think. And so that's why at the end, I will deliver what I tell you. So when we think about all this technology, at the beginning, we are thinking and saying, it was about predicting the future. This technology allows us to make better forecasts or other kinds of things. But now it's not about predicting. Now it's about shaping, because now somehow with the technology, we are really shaping the thoughts. You heard a lot this quote saying, if it's free, you are the product. Actually, you are not anymore just the product. You are the raw material to be shaped, especially when you are born as a digital situation and you start using this since you are really the first step you take, you're already using a mobile phone and everything is considered like B2B digital. So the metaverse, today we're going to talk about the metaverse. What is this metaverse? We have seen it. It's the more typical definition is that is a virtual reality space in which users can interact with a computer-generated environment and other users. So this is the specific definition. You already see something like a computer-generated environment. When you think of the metaverse, what is instead the narrative? Is it immersive or not? What do you think? Is the metaverse immersive? Yes. Yeah. So.
All right. So we have a question. We have a raised hand from George. I'm going to unmute George, and then please feel free to speak up. Okay.
Hi, thanks. No, I thought that was a great question. From my experience with it, I've tried to play around with some of the worlds that have been created. And right now, I'd say it doesn't feel completely immersive. It feels a lot more like, stepping into a video game rather than something immersive.
Yeah, thanks, George. Actually, how can something be immersive if it only implies 2 senses out of 5? What about the taste? What about the touch? What about the smell? Of course, it's not immersive. And we are going to see Icelandverse, a very sarcastic video about how the limitation of the metaverse is immersive. But before we start, let's start, first of all, set the base, because you need to have some basis to understand the metaverse. First of all, is when we talk about metaverse, we are always talking about blockchain. Blockchain was really in vogue about 4 or 5 years ago. Then it started kind of disappearing. compared to quantum computing, which also disappeared. They're compared to self-driving car that also disappeared. And then one of the latest things were about cryptocurrencies, which includes blockchain, but was behind it, and the ups and downs. And then the NFTs, and then suddenly back to blockchain, and the metaverse gave this big buzz on the blockchain and the NFTs. Blockchain is the technology behind this metaverse. So when you consider, plays a crucial role about all these elements, and it's very, very important. When you think about augmented reality, like Pokemon Go is the typical example of augmented reality. That's another technology. You have just a mobile phone that it shows is transparent because it shows still part of the reality, but then it can show a kind of virtual reality. This is augmented reality. The MetaQuest instead is virtual reality, because mainly you are using a device which is filtering what you are watching and what you are listening. So it's something a bit different. The blockchain is behind this because it has a way to filter a part of the metaverse, because beyond the video games, you can do other operations that we are going to see. The blockchain is going to be absolutely crucial. So while you're thinking, why the metaverse? What is happening there? Why we are all talking about it? There is an increased visibility because you are reaching a wider audience, because somehow we are already we are so connected on the mobile phones, but furthermore, we are having something more than just a small device, which we are using for hours and hours every day. But in theory, this is something that gives us a better view, a better environment, especially for gamers. Then customer engagement. In theory, you can have and offer the customer a new interactive experience, maybe partly immersive. For example, luxury apartments. Now, when there is a new skyscraper building, you can already see how the apartment will look like. You can have a virtual view of how the apartment will look like. Of course, this is happening because it's a luxury building. So you have the money to create this virtual experience. But to create a virtual visit of an apartment, it can cost easily 30,000 euros just to have an idea, a sense of how the apartment will look like. Even if you have a 360-degree camera, and we have put here a 360-degree camera, and we show here, we just go around, we can reproduce immediately this room. Is this the metaverse? I can check this room, but I cannot touch this chair and move it. This is something else if we are going to do this. That's why once we have the whole view of the room, then we need to make all the pieces that compose this room interactive, and then becomes the metaverse, because I can somehow interact, even if it's only with the sight and the ear, I can interact with the pieces of the room. That's why you understand there is lots of development behind it. Advantages, lower costs. We can recreate an environment, and of course it's virtual. So yes, it costs 20, 30,000, but in some cases, and we'll see an example of a choreography, it's still cheaper than make a whole choreography where you have to build things, you have to make costumes, and of course it's much more expensive than 30,000 euros. So depending on what we are shooting at. And you can make experiments, because nothing is forever, nothing is physical. So you can do other things. So there are some advantages that have already been used for a while. How to metaverse? Avatars and 3D representation for sure. So we are using the avatars. I don't use any avatar because I don't play. I'm not a gamer because I'm not online. I'm not even on the social media. I just use LinkedIn for work. And I was saying a few minutes before Tumel, I even left Twitter. So it's like, I don't do anything of this. I have a very physical life, despite I teach digital strategy, I like to touch things, I'm into the nature, I travel. So I don't have any avatars, but it's me. Then there are millions of people who are having avatars and they are buying, they're using the avatar, they feel identified with their avatars, they dress up when it's Halloween, and they do many other things when they use the avatars. Other advantages, you can train employees. Imagine a new employee entering a new office and then has to say hello to everyone, and everyone has to stand up, and they present you 30 people on the first day. You won't remember any name, and the people are just working. They don't want to be bothered by the new employees. They don't have time. Maybe 1 week later, you can do this online. So instead of presenting all the employees, you just put them the Meta Quest, and they play and they go around the company, they meet the people, they talk to them, they listen, they're speaking. So it's a very great way for the onboarding. You can support them and maintenance for companies using the metaverse. You can use things to understand where the problem is, how to repair things. And maybe you can help customer navigate different platforms. You can have many things that are useful. Let me give this example of one of the application of the metaverse that can happen on creativity. Do you think that the artificial intelligence, that the machine can be more creative than a human being? What do you think? Can artificial intelligence be more creative than the human being? Yes. Who say yes? You. Can you give us support a bit why you believe that artificial intelligence is more creative than the human being?
Yeah, I think it's like with like a sufficient amount of information and everything, because human brain cannot store, they only can store like limited amount of data, whereas like AI, as long as there's like a wealth of like information, they can like invent a lot of things. And as of now, I can see like even AI can like generate a photo out of like what do you call this, keywords and everything. So I think yes.
Yeah. So, and what you are saying is right, because at the end, you just nailed it, because all this option, all the possibility of having so much knowledge stored allows you to make lots of combination. So that's definitely a superior quality compared to us. We have a special sense to make this combination extremely useful, but the machine has statistically so many variables that can put together that it works really well. Jeremy.
Yes, we have a raised hand from Eric. Is it okay to
Please.
unmute? Okay, all right. All right, please go ahead.
Oh, I was just thinking that if the machine can dream, perhaps that's where creativity would be, you know, on the
Machine and dream.
the same as a person. If a person can dream, I think that's probably going to be something that a machine can't do right now.
Yeah. So there are many things that the machine cannot do, like us, like dreaming, like having consciousness, like having judgment, but it can combine lots and lots of variables. So what is happening here is the concept of stepping aside about creativity. So we are unique in empathy, we are unique in motivating people. Machine can make jokes. Looks at a joke made by the machine. Russian rake leaves, Russian brake cars. It's not really funny. It makes sense if it's like, but it's not funny. So if we ask the machine to make jokes, to be creative, it will not be really good as humans. But they've been using example for putting, imagine a choreography. You have an idea about a new choreography. A new choreography for ballet, it requires something to build, to be visual, but also something to be tested, because people have to dance, have to interact with the scenography, have to see if it resists. And if you have many options, if you consider something big, something small, something colorful, the material is going to be, how they're going to interact, it's endless. So the machine somehow can do a simulation of how many options there are. It can offer you maybe 50 options, and then you go quickly to it, and maybe you choose 2, and these 2 maybe you can test them, because the machine has already made a previous test and say these are the feasible one, and then you can test with the real dancers. Yeah, IBM Watson is not really working well, but they tried making new recipes. So some recipes made sense, and then a real chef tasted and see if this made sense. So there is a support, and there is something which is happening. With the metaverse, you can get a bit farther because you can really see how the choreography will look like. And out of those 50 options, instead of seeing on a flat screen, you can really see what the computer has proposed to you and maybe get your idea for your own final choreography. So there are lots of options that can be used. Want to say something? Yeah.
Yeah, so you would say that what do you call this? AR could be like more creative, but it's just like in order for like to support that they are true, is there's like a need a human intervention to confirm it.
Excellent. So that's exactly what is happening. Is the concept of augmentation. We're not going to talk today because this is more AI related, but this is an element of how the metaverse can help. It can help to augment, not in the sense of automate everything, but give, for example, the onboarding can augment the options of the human being in doing something quicker and having a virtual view, maybe from their own house before getting to the office, and start knowing things. Is an onboarding which is happening on the metaverse from home make sense? Is it really going to make a sense of belonging to someone? Of course not. Not even if you spend 1 month in the office, not even probably you spend a year in the office, you get a sense of belonging. That takes longer. Takes like maybe a moment of stress where you felt like supported by the people. There are lots of elements. So we cannot forget, and this is the latest paper I just published, that we have an element of tacit knowledge, which is different from explicit knowledge. Tacit or implicit knowledge is what we've just been doing here, talking about backpacking before we connected online. And there we had some moment here, and then maybe later when we finish, we'll have other questions, just because we are here and we are waiting here and we want to use this time at the best. And maybe we're talking about something personal, about how we go on holidays. And you don't do this online. It's a session on the metaverse and say, yeah, guys, you've seen it in the video. I like backpacking. I go and do crazy things, but you're not here to listen to my backpacking things. You're listening to the metaverse. So I'm not going to talk about it, but here we are going to do it before the session and maybe also after the session. All this tacit knowledge is something which is not happening remotely. That's why we all want to have, as much as we can, sessions in person. So all these things can happen, but we have to see how it's going to happen. Where is it happen? Which sectors are going to be occupied by the metaverse? Maybe in a decade, everyone. Now it's just gaming, fashion, entertainment, media, and retail, which is not a small amount, but let's see also the depth. In gaming, in the metaverse, is really, really into it. But media retail, a bit less, about only certain elements. Let's give some example. Hosting events in virtual space. So when we think about hosting an event in virtual space, this is something which is happening. We are going to see later a catwalk and some events which have happened in the metaverse. When we had the lockdown, all the events had to happen virtually. Everyone tried to give a kind of sense of like making it a bit nicer, since the only way you could go participate was through the screen. So that was okay. Virtual reality to create immersive marketing campaign. And we are going to see things of how you can create immersive marketing campaign, for example, for food, and say, you cannot touch, you cannot smell, you cannot taste. How you're going to do it? We're going to see a quick example. You can create a digital version of familiar physical products, like consumed in the metaverse, but how it is going to be really perceived by the user. You can create virtual locations. I was in Persepolis in Iran this year, and Persepolis now is mainly ruins. So you go there and you see just broken walls. But then we were using the MetaQuest, and suddenly you could see how perceptible it was look like with the real, or what could be the real colors. And it was fantastic because you could see really how the streets of Persepolis were going. You were walking around. It was an incredible experience to try to feel it. And then when you were removing the MetaQuest and you were really seeing that could, even the same ruins had changed flavor. You can really see even the only column still standing was different. So there are things. Or you can have some feedback. You can have some more interaction with the customers to stay there. There are some more some applications. So when we think about the metaverse, you have to understand something about the NFTs. I only write with fountain pens since I'm a child. I'm one of those weird children who only use fountain pen to write. And I have absolutely only one single brand I use to write with fountain pen. And this brand, which is called Mont Blanc, is normally faked. And so you can see, if you look in any place, you will find fountain pen that can cost 10 euros, while the real cost is minimum 400 or 500. How do you recognize a real Mont Blanc fountain pen from a fake one? You can see immediately, if you use them, how they write. If it doesn't flow, it's not a real one. So that's the main thing. You buy a fountain pen, not to put it here and to show off. You buy a fountain pen to write smoothly. And it's a kind of whole exercise. How do you know if a product is real online? I say, wait, Giulio, why it has to be real online? We have a JPEG of the Mona Lisa all over the place. Why this has to be real online? I just put a picture of the Mona Lisa. No, sorry to say that. If you are a gamer, and for example, now is New Year's Eve or it's Halloween, you want to wear something. And because you are playing with the games and we are here, and if we are going to meet into a virtual space, we are going to meet there, we have all chosen an avatar. So maybe now I'm with the suit, but because I like backpacking, I want to be dressed with the shorts, the khaki shorts and the hat and explorer hat or whatever. And then it's Halloween and I want to wear something. You know, I'm Italian, so we are a bit pretentious. So maybe I want to have color khaki from Valentino or something like that. So I'm going to buy not just trousers from Avatar. I want to have them from Valentino. And I want you to see that I spend money on my khaki trousers. As crazy as it sounds, there are people already who are going to spend money. And a Gucci bag in Roblox has been sold for the Mountain of Robus, which is $3,500. With the funny, interesting things that in the metaverse, if you are good, you can steal a bag. So that's very interesting. So when you spend this amount of money, you want it to be unique. That's why the NFT, the non-fungible token, which is becoming interesting in the metaverse, is becoming a way so that you can have a khaki trousers being from Valentino and being real in the metaverse. So when we think about this, think about the Bored Ape Yacht Club. Each of these images has been sold. Now, if you want to buy, you have to spend about $500,000 just to buy one of these beautiful pieces of art. There have been 10,000 made. And this is something which is another way that you realize is a new way of speculation. It is a way of speculation because there is no artistic value in this. But also, Jeff Koons' piece of art, these were really piece of art. People liked it. And they were shining, they were colorful, and people start buying it for millions of dollars. Doesn't have to be a Picasso or a Monet. So it becomes another value that we assume, and it works for the people who are buying it. Then we have also offline. So it's not just online. It's a tribe online, offline, which works and is giving retailers an omni-channel experience. So you can buy the things offline, but maybe you have experienced them online. Maybe you've been watching how that suit, that clothes fits on someone, maybe on someone famous. Maybe you can use a deep fake to make this suit on someone famous. Maybe you ask the copyright, but you don't have to ask that person to test it. You just ask if to combine the two images. So there are lots of ways to integrate these things because people want to look. If you consider that ZMOT, the zero moment of truth, that people before buying online, they go and check in Google, Amazon, TripAdvisor, Google Maps, how this product is. The metaverse could be a good way for people to test it earlier. So there are lots of applications. What will be disrupted? We have virtual marketplaces that are taking over. The Decentraland is one example, Sandbox. There is a $2 trillion real estate industry things. There is a way to centrifuge for a project for unlocking liquidity for real world assets, but it's happening through the metaverse. So you can see all these products before. The world, they said the world population will be spending at least 1 hour per day in the metaverse. Consider that now already, even Candy Crush, small things, it's 3 billion gamers every day, already now. Not those maybe spend all day like this, but everyone who is in the underground is playing a game instead of reading something. We reach 3 billion, is a lot. So you understand that that's the market, it can be really, really huge. So all this game, when you enter, all these events, when you enter, they push you to buy things. So wherever you have is a way to purchase some avatars, some NFTs, so that when you are there, you have this feeling that you are interacting. How? By buying products. That's what is happening. So if you think the figure, there is a market of 478 US billion in 2020, and they predict 800 billion by 2024. They say that 30% of the company will sell service and product for the metaverse. 74% of US adults are joining or considering joining the metaverse. We have to see, and I will be very critical on this, and will show you a personal example of how critical I am. And then the Meta has invested more than $10 billion into the metaverse. And did it go well? They just fired 10,000 people. So what is happening with the user experience? First of all, there is a financial entry barrier, because as soon as in the Decentraland, as soon as you set up the account, you have to set up an account of cryptocurrency. So you cannot even log in without having set an account of cryptocurrency. Why? Because they just want you to spend money. It's not they want you to play. They want you to spend money immediately. So it doesn't really work if you haven't set a cryptocurrency wallet. Repeat users. It's difficult to have a usage that is repeated because they always are asking for upgrades and pay more things. So the more you use, the more you have to pay. So then how do you advocate the metaverse? You use 2D, you use the normal computer, the normal telephone to advocate the 3D things. So you realize that there is a kind of conflicts, there is a kind of contradiction into it. This is the typical example. It sounds very nice. What we did, we weren't just there. We used 5 MetaQuest, we made them playing some video games, and we did a promotional video, and that's it. No one really believed, first me, what we were just saying. So we were just in the hype that we have bought this MetaQuest, so we have to do this kind of things. I'm very critical on this. Why? Because we have to realize that very often we like to believe technology, but it's not really what is happening. When I was in the Philippines, I was navigating a river in the night to see the fireflies, and I was with the Israeli guy who just finished it was from Waymo, from Google. He just did the MBA in Harvard, the postdoc, the MC in Yale. He studied the bachelor in Oxford. So it was just kind of impressive. So we're talking about self-driving car. I say, do you know the study that's done in Germany? I say, which study? The study that's saying Germany has 90 million people. So we are going to use the self-driving car, and let's use see how feasible it is, because a car is still too expensive. You cannot afford it. So you must have a shared system. So let's say the viability, the business model viability. So they say, okay, let's see a self-driving car which has limited autonomy. Well, we're not using all over Germany, but we can use in the big cities. So 50 million people. Well, wait, because it's not really all over the big city. It has to be in this downtown or the big, so 5 million people. Hey, wait, it cannot be 24/7. It has to be like in rush hours or whatever. So you realize that the market was that tiny, wherever we are going to have the things. This guy has never heard. He's been working with Waymo for a long time. He never heard this example. Maybe you have never heard this, because we all say we're going to drive. I don't know if you remember in 2015 saying in 2020, for sure we are going to have self-driving car. We had something else in 2020 instead of self-driving car. So we had things we have to be really, really careful on what is we have to do and what actually the reality is. So what do we have as a business use cases? We have BMW. They are use 3D graphics to have, instead of using prototypes, to have something which is using the metaverse. Training, imagine fire brigades. You can train someone in extreme heat and maybe start getting used to move around with all the devices and something, but without breathing carbon dioxide, as you have to expose people in a real fire. So you can train many people, but without risking them. Soldiers, of course, you can shoot and you can put in the conditions without any harm from them. Surgery planning and support. Employees onboarding, as I already told you. Virtual service for hand-on worker, rescue fields. There are some applications, but very specific and especially very expensive. And then you have these digital clothes that are happening like this. Sorry. Yeah, doesn't work the way it is. So we have these digital clothes that normally are going to have, and people like to wear them in a way that make them nice. So brands, Coca-Cola, what are they doing? They're saying Coca-Cola experience the sound of drinking. So they make this noise. They even propose the NFTs they sold the NFTs for the sound of drinking. So you make the noise, and so you can have your own NFT of the sound of Coca-Cola. Gucci, Balenciaga, Louis Vuitton, they partnered with the Fortnite and Roblox. I told you that the Gucci bag was sold for 350,000 Robux, about 4,000, with the risk of being stolen. Small and medium-sized enterprise, they also got into this, the Metaverse Fashion Week, where they try to invite many small players. They say, come, early adopters will be rewarded. But is it really going to be true? Because you are going to provide experiences and to co-create this. Let's see a fashion week. This is a guy experiencing a fashion week. So he was there. There were other people, at least now they put the legs. So it's a bit more realistic because at least in this one, they have the legs. So this is the person is watching, and it's very big, it's very flashy. Everything is so cool. And what is really happening here? Nothing. And this is something interesting. And now it becomes the real things. You can pay and buy something so that you can clap. So this person has just purchased a service that he can say, yeah, how incredible, no? It's really worth the investment. So you can see that you can be extremely skeptical about all these kind of things and say, where are we heading to? But there is a business, Snapchat avatar lens, to make you seeing how you can look like, because avatars are becoming in certain fields more and more common. So you want to see how you look like. So now with the avatars, with the lens, with an app, you can start immediately seeing. And Instagram is getting more and more posts on people who are posting avatar pictures and not their own pictures anymore. So there is a huge market going there that maybe we don't know, but it's huge and it's happening. Avatar for business. They can create their own virtual space. They can try to promote this, but they have to go together because the cost, the entry barrier are really high, especially for small business. So, but you can start interacting with customer in a way that can be interesting. You start having music festivals. You can collect NFTs. You can have your own unique tickets, your own unique merchandise. So there are lots of these things which are happening, and people are start going to virtual music festival. Is it happening also this one? But you have to consider what are the drivers. Blockchain is the driver. Blockchain is useful because we have cryptocurrencies, smart contracts, and this will be all critical in the metaverse to guarantee the purchase. So definitely we are going to have this, because remember, blockchain has a cost. I'm part of a startup which is based in Singapore that we give blockchain for the maritime industry. And we have a big infrastructure, which is costly, but our cost is justified by the fact that we avoid big boats to get stuck in ports. And if you get stuck, every day can cost between $200,000 to $1 million per day. So that's why we can justify the blockchain. But I had people sometimes coming to me and say, I have an idea. And these people, of course, failed their course and say, my final project will be about selling secondhand clothes with a blockchain. I say, are you joking? If you're going to sell a Brunello Cucinelli Gillette that costs 7,000 euros with a blockchain, but not a 5 euros things to certify, what do you have to certify with a blockchain? So we have lots of things. Anyway, there are lots of elements, there are lots of interesting things. But what is the internet is for information, the metaverse is going to do for social connection. Maybe they are not bound anymore by physical distance. Maybe, but there are lots of limitations. So there are lots of there are lots of bids, there are lots of things. This artist known as Beeple, he sold a metaverse for 69 million US, just a metaverse piece. Blockchain is the biggest opportunity, blah, blah, blah. But let's see some videos now. So we have lots of doubts about Meta. I mean, I'm the first one. I don't even use WhatsApp anymore. I'm really, in some things, I'm very extreme. But I don't like the approach that Meta is using with this kind of persuading voice. It's going to be for your family, you're going to learn and whatever. It's not the way it is. It's happening lots of problems. We have in a world of polarized, and it's also because of this. What I like instead is a completely different approach where Tim Cook and Apple, and they've shown already with their privacy policy, they already gave back and they are not going to be so invasive. They set a very good example. And he says that we are not going to take people away from the reality. Really, virtual reality is something you can really immerse yourself, and that can be used in a good way, but I don't think you want to live your whole life like that. VR is for set periods, but not for a way to communicate well. So I'm against it, but that's how I look at it. I think it's a very honest thing. They are going to release the VR in 2023 this year. But mainly what they are trying to promote is more augmented reality, so that you have more like the Pokemon Go or whatever, that you have your own reality and you have some nuances, some suggestions. So when we finish here and we give this small brief on the metaverse, it is happening. This is happening, and it's happening around you. It's for fun and gaming for sure. In a smaller extent, it's happening also for work and training. It's happening for onboarding. In some cases, it's happening for health and virtual services. What it is like, I remember my father, I was the first person in Italy that in 1984 had the Macintosh in home. So I was really playing with this first Apple device. I was the first one who had the mouse. I remember I was 11 years old and I was playing with this, and it was interesting. I would have never imagined what it would have happened 40 years later, or even just 20 years later. So it's difficult to predict what is happening. But we probably, if everyone is doing it like we did in our promotional video from ESADE, we have to be on this and we have to keep an eye on it. Then how much time we have to consider, it's up to us. So I hope that this way was interesting, and we start now opening to some questions to see that what are the doubts or what are even the ethical issue maybe for this. Thank you so much.
All right, thank you so much. That was a lot to unpack, a lot to learn as well. One thing I really picked out was boy, everyone talks a lot about the lack of legs in the metaverse. So I found that was very interesting. Maybe that's something they can change in the future as well. So we are, I would say, probably winding up, and we will do a closing shortly, but we do have maybe a couple of minutes if we have any final questions. Do we have a few more moments for that? So we just want to open it up, maybe 2 or 3 questions if we have any. If you're joining us online, if you have any questions at all, please raise that virtual hand and we'll get to you. And even if you're here on campus, if you have any questions, any points you want to follow up on, please do take a moment and let us know if you have any questions. So please raise your hands if you have any questions. Oh, we have one on campus.
I'm really interested on the how it goes like in the future also. Like so earlier it was discussed also like such as Gucci and other like branded bags. So with them having getting into the metaverse, will it also like what do you call this, disrupt their current business in like the real world itself? Because if like they're designing bags in like virtually, will it like people will just like go by and focus more on like the
Well,
virtual?
the cannibalization is still unlikely to happen because still people have their own real life. So probably it could be a double spending, or maybe if people who stop going out because they only have a virtual life, still you are giving them a service. So anyway, they are buying it for you. It's not just going to buy once because probably they cannot spend it double way. So I don't think they are concerned about cannibalization, at least at this stage. But it's a good point. Maybe one day you have to start worrying about cannibalization, real virtual.
All right, thank you. And then sorry, there's one last question. In regards with like the legal and everything, because earlier also it was mentioned about like how do you say this, the copyright and everything, right? So it could also go with like the identity. It's also like with would it be possible that is metaverse already ready for those kind of like issues in the future?
Well, that's why NFTs and everything is going to work a lot on the identity and is really guaranteeing. One of the few things that is working really well is the copyright. So you cannot have these things. The problem is that anyway, the copyright, because that's what we wrote the article in Harvard Deusto, was that the copyright solution is not happening, of course, virtually, it's happening in a real court. So somehow there is a kind of bottleneck there because you are having a new world, but the solution are still in the real world. Thank you. Yes, Jeremy, thank you.
Yes, we have a question from George. I'll ask to unmute.
Hi, thanks. That was a fantastic presentation. I really enjoyed it. I think over the last couple of years, there's been so much hype over new technologies, and then a lot of kind of misplaced investments, even from very big players in tech. So, for example, so many companies invested millions in FTX, and it turned out to be a scam. And you talked about your student who wanted to sell clothes with NFTs or something like that, and that doesn't sound like such a great idea. I think a lot of companies or businesses or even people have that kind of fear of missing out on a new technology, so they want to invest, and it's understandable because if they get left behind, then they might lose to their competitors. For you, how can companies or individuals kind of analyze whether an opportunity is something they should start to take advantage of, or how can they kind of make that judgment as to whether or not this is something they need to pursue, or maybe sit back and wait?
Yeah, at the end we are going back to the typical FOMO, the fear of missing out. That at the end you just everyone is talking about it, so you want to be part of it and having a cognitive shortcut that, as you know, it doesn't going to work. So digital still is a business, and business requires a strategy. So you don't start from the technology, you always start from the strategy, which means what is the problem you are going to solve? What is the value you are going to give? So at the end, the beginning, that's why when you start talking about digital transformation or whatever, I first give, and every time longer, the more I acquire experience, the older I give, is always bigger the part on business and strategy that I give before start talking about metaverse, artificial intelligence, and whatever, because these are only tools to reach the way to give value to the consumer, and that's it. So that's always the same things. You start with a strategy, and then you see if there is a technology that can help you to achieve that goal.
Thank you so much. I think for the sake of time, we're going to have to wrap it up from here. But once again, thank you so much, Giulio. And if you're online, give him a big virtual round of applause on campus. Let's do physical round.
Thank you. Thank you so much.